What's up, homies? It's Chris Angel and Aaron Hendon. Hello, sir.
Hey, all right.
Hey.
Hey,
Let's do another episode of the Mindful CEO
okay.
because
Why
that's what
not?
we do here.
That's what we do here. That's what we're doing. And it's just us today because I think I fucked up sending the guest the calendar link.
It's all
And
right. I'm
I'm
I,
in denial about that, actually.
if I had my way, I'd sabotage all your guest invites so it could just be you and me.
It could just be me and you.
Reunited again.
And it feels so fine. It does indeed. Yeah, it's good to have a ramble with you for a minute.
Yeah,
And I think that so we're starting the Mindful CEO Mastermind.
very excited about that,
Very
brother.
excited about that. Should be next week. Rolling that out for people that have completed How to Live a Grateful Life in a Fucked Up World. And one of the people that was interested in doing it, or one of the people that I would like to be interested in doing it, we had an exchange, a text exchange, where it came out that she felt that she wouldn't have enough to contribute, that she wasn't good enough at this. Now, I don't know if this was meditation, which I suspect it was, or just not up to enough stuff. In the meantime, this woman runs a construction company, so it's
Mhm.
very hard for me as someone outside her brain looking at her life to think
Mm.
she doesn't have anything to contribute. But that experience of not having enough to contribute and not being good enough at something and
Mm. Yeah,
being hesitant to put myself out there was super familiar.
yeah, yeah.
And that would walk through that in terms of mindfulness and what's available there and how that works and
I
doesn't
think
work. And
I think some of and I was, as you said that, it made me think just the some of the existing culture around masterminds. I think of
oh yeah,
oh, this is where the elite go to talk about all the things they're doing in the trenches of stuff, and or you're going to go
yeah,
to so and so's cool mastermind, and I'm like, dude, I'm not a master of anything. I don't know if I have anything to contribute to that caliber of a conversation, but so that might be attention worth exploring too.
yeah. I hadn't even thought about that. I mean, so there's that level of marketing. Do we call it a mastermind? Do we not call it a mastermind? And what does that bring up for people?
Right.
Um, it could be a not think tank. Oh, a non-thinking tank. It's a non-thinking tank, which would be better. Uh,
It's a Wu Wei tank.
it's a wu-wei tank.
A Wu Tang tank. It's the Wu
Ah,
Tang.
a
It's the Wu
Wu
Tang
tank.
tank. The Wu Tang
Uh,
cushion, man. Welcome to the Wu Tang cushion.
that's excellent. Wu
Oh
tank is for
God.
kids. There's so many options there. That's excellent. Um, yeah, I never even realized that the Dustin
I hadn't
Hoffman,
either.
the old tortoise character in Kung Fu
Mm.
Panda, is Master Wu Wei.
Yes, right. That's that's Oogway. Oogway, actually. It's Oogway.
Oh, it is. It's
Sorry.
Uguay.
It's
Okay,
Oogway.
never mind.
Okay.
Never mind. That's just my casual racism coming out. Okay. Um, yeah. So there's that space of all right. So there's this thing about mastermind where it's these brilliant people sitting around coughing up ideas of things that they've done, but we really intended it to be like, okay, we're a community of people
Mm.
together creating something. Like in the Rick Rubin creative act sense of, or the example we used, Bob Dylan saying that, when he rhymed "kidding you" with "didn't you," it surprised him.
Mm.
And that's a common experience of artists when they're
Mm. Mm.
creating something, that something came through them that surprised them, that they didn't, and
Yeah.
that level of being surprised by what gets created is what we're interested in. How do we
Yeah.
create the conditions? Because hustle culture and whatever passes for, thinking things through, while valuable on some level of planning and execution, I think you
Yeah.
need to think that
Yeah.
through as a modality.
Yeah.
It You can't think through creativity,
Right.
right? And
Yeah. That's good. I like that.
but you can create conditions in which creativity arises. Chris, there's creating conditions in which creativity arises. Yeah. Which is,
Yep.
you talk about whatever artists, have writing retreats, or they go to their cabin and
Yeah.
they turn off their phone and whatever you know, they work like that. You could even sometimes pressurize situations where there's a deadline is a condition for creativity in a particular context. It forces you into it. Um, so there's creating conditions for creativity, and then there's this other thing that we were talking about thinning the veil. Did we?
Yeah.
I don't know if we talked about it on another podcast, or you and I were just rambling about it, but that aspect of thinning the veil between the worlds. Were we talking about the
We talked that with Holly a little bit last episode.
right? Okay, yeah.
We didn't go fully into it, but we talked. It did come up. So yeah.
And you haven't really talked about the telepathy tapes, or
Not in depth. I
not
mean,
in that.
or
Okay,
maybe
good.
I can't remember if we
Anyway,
have or not.
regardless, let's talk about it now. That space of thinning the veil. So if anyone here hasn't listened to the telepathy tapes podcast, right? You should. It's fucking mind blowing, frankly.
Yeah.
It just
So
really, really, really changes a lot of how I view life. But one of the aspects of it, I think it's relevant for this, is that thinning of the veil between us, between what passes for consciousness and what's available to us in terms of divine intelligence, cosmic consciousness, the
Yep.
unified field, the
Yep.
whatever you want to call it, whatever name you are comfortable with,
Yep.
to call that space of where where didn't you and kidding you can come from,
Yeah.
right? Where creativity, where something new shows up, where intuition meets coincidence meets taking the action,
Yeah.
because all those things have to line up in some way.
Yeah.
I think that aspect of thinning the veil is one of the things you and I are particularly interested in developing in that mastermind. With meditation, thins that veil. Meditation reduces the
Yeah.
increases the permeability of the membrane that separates us from the divine. And
I like that.
I'm saying it in a funny way, but I think it's accurate.
Yeah. Right.
Um,
Mm.
and so doing that in community and doing that with an intention, but not, an intention the way we've always created intention around here, like it's a direction, not
Right.
a goal.
Yeah. 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 Right. Right. There's a lot in this. I don't know. Nobody. The thought that I don't know that I'm good enough to participate or to contribute or to whatever. In a 3D world experience where you're like, oh, in this world, there are experts and there are beginners, and I'm not an expert. That's not what this is. This is a different sort of frame, which is we're all walking each other home. Thank you, Ram Dass. We're all walking each other home until we die and rejoin consciousness, right on the other side of that veil, until we're just spirit again. There is no one who's going to who gets to lead that conversation. Like the wiser you get, the more you realize you're not qualified to lead the conversation, right? This is like the paradox of gurus and teachers. They're like, the humility that they have is like, what do you think is happening here? What do you think that I know that you don't know? Like, what do you think I have that you don't have? Right?
Right.
And so we're creating conditions. This is why I like the idea of a CrossFit box, or as we've been calling it, the cushion, that you get to come into a space where there's nothing. It's not like there's something to figure out. There's just a practice to practice with each other. And in our mastermind, there's a conversation, there's meditation, and there's conversation. And those two practices allow us to explore that veil and permeate it, perforate it. It allows us to kind of poke holes in the veil so there's more access, compared to if you didn't put yourself on the cushion with us. then you can try to journal it. You can try to think about it. You can go on a silent retreat, and there's a lot of things you can do, but there's something available collectively together when we're in a conversation about it that I think makes the muscle memory better and easier.
Yeah, I think let's look at that because what is it about that? So, what have you and I found valuable about this is it gives it, first of all, it gives it some reality, gives it, because if it's just me talking to myself,
Yeah.
that's one thing. And if it's just me meditating or listening to myself, that's another thing, right? But when I have the opportunity to come out of my head with it and into the world with it and bounce it around in a clearing in which it's heard, right? Because if I sat on the bus to do this,
Yep.
they would kick me off the bus, right? I think that's a
That's
really
great.
important piece. That's
That's
something
great.
that we haven't really distinguished in
You're
terms of the
right.
community, but
Mm,
the listening aspect, anytime I lead anything,
mm,
I'm always in the presence of these are the most generous people in the world because I love doing this.
mm.
And if I did this on the bus, they would kick me off the bus. But these people are a request to hear this.
That's great.
They're a request to
Yeah.
engage. And so the mastermind, the opportunity of the non-think tank, the Wu Tank, um, the Wu Tank, it is great. We're the Wu Tang Clan. Is really there's just no other way to say it. We are the Wu WOOTANK
Oh
Clan.
God.
Yes, Wu Tang Clan. Um,
So good.
yeah, it's good because no one will know how we got there in that say that, so it'll make no sense to anybody. Um, but the advantage of that is, you have a group of people that are listening to you sort something out, and they're sorting something out for themselves, and we're developing something with each other um,
Yeah.
that can be intended but not forced.
Mm,
And I just think that's a real that is an underrated, underdistinguished aspect of what has things move forward. For some reason, the image of Oppenheimer, the movie, came out in my head just now. Like,
mm. And in
can
what
you?
way?
What would you ask?
Oh, sorry. In what way? It got pixely
Oh,
on me there for a minute.
well, just community scientists that were now sequestered in Los Alamos. I guess I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Sort
but
of.
there's a community of scientists
Yes.
sequestered,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
away
Yeah.
from all distraction in a community, bouncing ideas off each other, working on various aspects of a project,
Right.
but
Yeah.
all
That's
within, a particular framework, particular
yeah.
container to
Yeah.
have something happen. And,
Yeah.
using what they said, it's funny. I am looking for shows to binge constantly. And have you ever seen Silicon Valley?
No.
It's an HBO show. It's dumb. It's in the domain of Community. I don't know if you ever saw Community.
Oh, sure.
It's that kind of silly,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
dumb humor. It's good. I mean, it's solid. I liked it a lot. I liked it pretty much as Community. Community, I think, is a little bit better, but um,
Hmm.
uh, there's a lot of that kind of. They're software, the developers, they're software engineers, and they're writing software together, constantly working on a project. But it's that kind of getting new ideas from
Mm. Mhm.
random incidences in life that wouldn't happen if you weren't in a community of people
Yeah.
doing something about that, getting that to happen. And
Hmm. I like that a lot.
yeah, and I think there's a something really available in that space of the the listening that you're granted
Mm.
by
Mhm.
another is a very under uh, misunderstood, underutilized, not recognized aspect of
Mm.
creativity.
Right.
Um,
Um, this is not an undiscovered. I mean, your example of Oppenheimer or any sort of Wu Tank project is a great is no, that's a known thing. People do that on purpose because of the
Yes.
results it produces.
Yes.
If you go back to Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich, like he was talking about the mastermind. So what it's
Completely.
become in hustle culture, masterminds in hustle culture have become, this, oh, top producers, let's get together and talk about whatever. But if you go back to where that started with Napoleon Hill, mastermind was simply a group of people committed to a direction, a common direction, in which the mastermind, as a noun, not a verb, the mastermind would show up. Where two or more are gathered in a spirit of harmony, there is the mastermind. And that's different than let's mastermind a thing. Let's compare notes to a thing. And so there really is this, and it shows up, that mastermind shows up in the listening of each other, holding space for that creativity to come through, that veil to come through, that thing to come through the veil. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good as a noun, not a verb.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because I think I default hear it as a verb. I mean, I
Yeah.
know I default hear it as a verb.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's distinct. And then that's right. That's right. The mastermind. Um,
Which, by the way, if you're thinking about, I don't know if I have enough to contribute,
mhm.
In a verb mastermind where we're going to do stuff. And so
That's right.
what
That would
I
make sense.
contribute matters. In the mastermind, what you're contributing is your presence. What you're contributing
right.
is your listening, because it's the mastermind that shows up and contributes to us.
That really resolves the whole thing for anyone who's looking at it from that perspective, because I'm sure she was looking at it like a verb, like I don't have enough to contribute. People are going to be putting in their ideas. I'm also fairly confident it was. I don't know. I'm not good enough at meditation yet.
Sure.
There's that space too, which is as crazy as a fucking thing as you could say, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Right. Oops. Yeah.
and then there's okay, good. So then, if we're talking about thinning the veil, going back to the thinning the veil conversation
Yes.
about that, it's you're thinning the veil between what? Between you and the mastermind. I mean, when you sit, you're tapping into that. You're tapping into some greater consciousness,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
in you. We are, and it's more easily accessed in community.
Right.
There's definitely that space of when two or more people are together. Yeah,
Right.
there's
Well,
something that
what's that?
I was just going to say it. If it's just you, it's harder to hear.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just you, or if it's you talking to yourself, or if it's the consciousness talking, and if you're in community,
Right.
you start bouncing it off people. You can hear what resonates. What's not just you talking to yourself.
Yeah. Well, there's so many. It's like the thing about doing it with others is, like, on one hand, you've got um, the benefit of additional perspectives, resources, listenings. Somebody's as our if we're all a bunch of like antenna, you're picking up something, I'm picking up something. There's more receptors available when there's not just you. So that's part of it. Another part of it is we think in our 3D experience here that we are individuals, but the telepathy tapes does such a great job of demonstrating that we are not. Like, we are interdependent. Like, they're not telepathically communicating with themselves. Their whole existence in their rich world of wisdom is happening because they're communicating with others. So, but I think when our culture, at least Western culture, is so used to being a maverick and a pioneer and a head west young man, and let's make a name for ourselves. Everything is so individually focused that we've sort of forgotten, we've forgotten I am you, you are me. Together we have access to more than we do alone.
Yeah, and there's an opportunity that's in being in community. I was thinking about it in terms of imposter syndrome, and
Yeah.
I don't have enough to contribute, which comes up all the time. Like, I
Mm.
I deal with it all the time in terms of writing my book, and I want
Yeah.
to do TED Talk, and then I look at other people and my credentials and da da da, and all of it shows up. To me, have a really, really easy time in dismissing my capacity or my
Mm.
ability. I don't know what to say. My veracity, but that's not the right word. Uh, I can discount myself really easily
Mm.
if it's just me, right?
Uh-huh.
And one thing that you provide for me, or the community will provide for people, is a check on
Yeah.
where because this woman runs her own business. She runs her own construction. She's a woman in the construction field. How could she possibly have that thought?
Right.
And we look at other people and we're like, how could that person have that thought?
Right.
And yet,
Yeah.
we with ourselves have that thought all the time.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect of community team where you don't get to do that to yourself. The other aspect that's also available that people love with community is accountability.
Right.
Just having a community of people that are listening you in a particular way, holding you to account, because we will all do things we said we would do to other people. Or when we said it to other people, not things we would do to other people.
Right.
What we said we would do, when other people hear it, we're more likely to get it done than if we just say it to ourselves. That's as ordinary as anything can possibly be. And
Well, so on that, I love that, because the space that you and I are creating in this mastermind then becomes really valuable if you listening to this, the person who joins it, wants to have a mechanism or a space that makes it easier for you to practice it.
Right.
For me, you and I doing this podcast is just that. The mastermind is basically a bigger version of this. Like, I wouldn't have shown up by the way, we're over 100 episodes. I would not have shown up over 100 episodes over the course of 2.5 years if it was just me. But because you and I do it together, it's on our calendar. The accountability to do it doesn't even feel like accountability to me, by the way. It feels like I get to hang out with Aaron every time, and we have a lot of fun. So, but I don't think most people's relationship to mindfulness and meditation is fun. But that's what this makes available when you do it with others. Like,
That's right.
Let's transform your relationship to it from something you should do or something that would be really good for you to something like, oh my God, this is a highlight of my week.
Yeah, it's true. We're going to go back to, CrossFit, but that's, one of the big advantages for me about CrossFit is that, I go to the same class every time I go,
Yep.
the 6 a.m. class, and I've been doing it for 5 years.
Yeah.
And there's a handful of people in there that are my 6 a.m. partners. And we are, bound together by the trauma of doing that at 6 a.m. And,
Right.
we look down on the 9 a.m. class and the 5 p.m. class. We scoff at them. And,
Yes.
because we know we're the real deal. And, so and when I don't go, it's been a while since I let myself off the hook from going. At this point, 5 years in, I look forward to it. But that wasn't the case for 4 of the 5, for sure. And it's probably been more than 5 years, but whatever. For most of it, the majority of it, I did not look forward to going. But I would go because, I wanted to see my friends, and
Right.
I enjoy them. And so there's that aspect. There's the social aspect. And then there's the accountability. Like, if I don't go a lot, they'll give me shit,
Right. Right.
So there really is that world. And I think that's missing. I know that's missing in meditation communities. I go to a Sangha once a week and meditate within a group, which is, that's just you sitting with your eyes closed in a room full of other people sitting with their eyes closed. What the fuck? How less social could you be? There's literally
Right.
no, I mean, there's nothing social
Yeah.
about the actual thing itself,
That's
but there's
interesting.
an energy that's present when you meditate with other people that's just not present when you meditate yourself and meditate by yourself. And um, so there's that. There's just energetically, it's different.
Yeah.
It's different in that you don't get, this is just about getting a meditation teacher. It's, if you don't get a meditation teacher, you're just literally just making it up. How do you don't
Right.
get
Yeah.
questions answered? You don't get,
Right.
it's very, very difficult to imagine that there's, I mean, I didn't have I started with a meditation with TM, which is instructed meditation.
Sure. Yeah.
But it wasn't until, I decided to get certified that I really got, oh yeah, wait a minute. A meditation teacher really does answer a lot of questions that people really do have about getting it right, and dispels a lot of myths that just show up
Yeah.
because our experience of life is really pretty distinct from what's available from the experience of life when one practices meditation. And so that
Yeah.
until
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
two, until the new one emerges and the old one, the old one hangs on. Every view of
Yeah.
life has a
Hmm.
wants to live.
Yeah.
Has
Yeah.
a survival instinct.
Huh.
That's interesting though. That's an interesting thought. That every view of life has its own survival instinct.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Right. That is interesting.
Um,
I like that you could have like I, this doesn't need to be a hole we fill in the space of the mindfulness and meditation communities, but to your point about it being somewhat an isolated practice, an isolating practice, bringing socialness to mindfulness, that there's like that, the whole CrossFit example, like, oh, I show up to CrossFit because it's easier, it's more fun, etc. Like, but I don't know where that, unless it's a yoga studio, but even that you're busy doing a posture versus being able to engage in a dialogue. Like one of the things I love is that I appreciate about it is my curiosity wants to cottywomple stuff. I want to take the
yeah,
crayon for a walk. I want to explore some of these richer conversations, but do it from a mindful, not book read, not book smart, but like a soulful, what does the mastermind say about it? Like, well, I want to explore it with people who are interested in that also. And I don't know where you can find that in terms of the mindfulness space. Where do you go
right.
find socialness in mindfulness? I don't know.
You don't generally. I mean,
Right.
you would need a sangha. You would need a community
Yeah.
to do that. And there's insight communities all over the country and all over the world, and
Mm,
you know,
got it.
people do that the way they do, and people certainly do Zen the way they do church. People get that same vibe from their church
Yeah.
often,
Right.
right?
That's right. That's right. That's
That's
right.
whether or
Maybe
not,
that's why I like it, because that's in my background, but I kind of moved on from that container because that container didn't really
yeah, I
fulfill
think that scratches maybe
my
an
questions.
undistinguished itch for
Yeah.
people.
Right.
Like that space of having it's beyond just the religious specifics of the
Yeah.
um, of the theology,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
just having the
Right.
community of like-minded people to play with, in a realm of,
That's yeah. So it's so interesting because if you go through like typical avatar exercise, you'd be like, well, there's different kinds of people that would really be a fit for this. There's some who really want to, you had mentioned somebody that's interested in sales and really wanted to be in a mindful conversation with other people in sales about the tension between being mindful and producing. And then there's people who are spiritual, but they outgrew the theology that they grew up with,
mm,
and they want to ask some mindful questions about how does this whole thing work. And I think it helps if they're in a business for themselves, but their interest is not so much in the how do I produce from a mindful place, but how do I make sense of my world while I'm in business. And those are kind of different places to come from in that conversation. But
right, yeah,
and
it's
I think both of those kinds of people could get their needs met, could feel fulfilled in the space I think you and I are intending to hold. it takes a little bit of intention for how you show up to the space with what you want to get. But anyway, yeah. Could we be the Wu Tank Sangha cushion?
Uh,
The Wu Tank Sangha cushion Cottywopple Crayon Club
gang,
gang.
clan.
Oh god.
No, we
Yes.
can't.
Okay.
It's already taken. I looked it up on GoDaddy.
Oh,
I know it's very sad.
that's sad.
I know. I can't believe. Well, we could be that too.
It'll be a secret handshake kind of a thing. Like it's not public branding, but it's in the
Right.
background as
That's right.
a wink and a nod.
That's right.
Hey, are you part of the Wu Tank clan?
The Wu Tank. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
All right, good. All right, well, let's wrap that there. Those are all interesting questions and all interesting places to play. And yeah, I mean, I like thinking about it in terms of a noun, and we're tapping into something that exists that's available to people. So
Yeah.
cool.
A great place, those of you listening, if you haven't already, a great place to start with this would be either Living a Grateful Life in a Fucked Up World, which is a free 9-week mindfulness meditation program, right, Aaron, that you lead?
Yep, yep. I got to update the website. It still says June 4th, so I got to get the next
Okay.
dates.
Yep.
I don't
There's
know if I
always
can.
another cohort coming. So
Yeah,
just go to the site, just go to thegratefulbreath.com,
yep,
thegratefulbreath.com. We'll link this up in the show notes, but look for the next upcoming date. By the way, even if the date was off, Aaron, like fill out the form anyway, because that gets you on the list so that we know to follow up with you about that free 9-week mindfulness meditation
right.
program. There's also one for what real estate agents, Aaron, called Living a Grateful Life in a Fucked Up Industry, which I love.
Exactly right.
Love that.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's at the Realtor's Edge, yeah?
Yep, the realtorsedge.com. And again, the
Yeah.
dates are off on that, but we'll get that updated and probably be
Yeah.
September. The next cohort will go off in September.
I would just say for both of those programs, like if you really if you've started to outgrow hustle culture, you're feeling the constraints and the stress of hustle culture, you're like, there's got to be a more easy, mindful, peaceful way to be productive. Yes, there is. And I would encourage you, Aaron, you have some great, I love your stats about, your team in real estate where the only
Yeah,
thing
I mean,
different was meditating.
that's right. 260% increase in sales, and it's still going. And it's
Right.
just and it's no one's working harder.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so that'd be a great place to start. I highly recommend you guys do that. Go to thegratefulbreath.com or therealtorsedge.com. I'll link those up below. And then if you're interested in the Mindful CEO Mastermind, that is the container or the space after the Wu Tank clan, after that 9-week free program, because once you go through that basic, right, creates a foundation, then the natural progression of that is to want to stay in that conversation and stay in that practice to see what else opens up on the other side of that veil for you. So
Exactly.
there you go, friends. Thanks for hanging out in this episode. Until next time, peace.
Peace.